Hey, good morning, folks. Hope you're doing great this Monday morning. Ready to get the week started off right. Some morning minutes in the Word. We're going to be looking in Job for this week. And over the last few days, I've watched a documentary on Netflix called The American Gospel. Another preacher had recommended it, so I started watching it. And really, I got to be honest, it really spoke to me in a lot of different ways this week. From just how we present the gospel and some of the false teachings that are out there. It talked a good bit about kind of the health, wealth, welfare type of gospel, and one of the things that they believe is that Christians never suffer. If you're right with God, you will never suffer, and it really drove me to the book of Job. And so I want you to consider the book of Job. Now, where of course it's morning minutes. It's just a few minutes. We're not going to go deep, but there's just a few thoughts as I was thinking about Job that I wanted to share with you. So let's look just at one verse today. You're probably familiar with the story of Job, and we really, this is a verse that probably jumps out the most to you, and that is verse 8 of chapter 1. So Job 1:8 says this, "And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil." What I want you to see today is really, today we're just going to look at one portion of that verse. And then we're going to look at the rest of it on Wednesday, and then we're going to jump in later to the chapter for Friday. But right now, I want you to consider that phrase, "And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job?" When I think about that phrase, "Hast thou considered my servant Job?" This is the God of the universe, the creator, sustainer of all things, the one who spoke the worlds into existence, speaking to Satan, and he singles out one person. "Have you considered Job?" And he says, "My servant Job," not just any guy, but my servant Job. Now, for something, again, I've been thinking about Job these last few days, and we're going to talk about a few different things over these next few days. But I just thought about when God called out Job's name. "Have you considered my servant Job?" I wonder what it would take for one of our names to be put there. If God and Satan were having a discussion, I wonder if he could call out our name. "Have you considered my servant?" And then put your name there. Based on the way you're living right now, based on the way I'm living, could God ask Satan, "Have you considered my servant?" And then mention our name. I mean, in a number of things. One, are we really serving him? Like, are we serving God with our lives? Are we following his will, doing his thing that he's called us to? Whatever that is, are we serving God? But then secondly, I mean, could he trust us enough to call out our name to Satan? Are we faithful enough that he could say, "Hey, you know what? You want an example of someone who loves me? You want an example of someone who serves me? That's the person right there. Have you considered my servant?" He called out Job's name. And we'll see, and if you're familiar with the story, you know what happened. And so you know that Job, he had his doubts, he had his questions, but yet he stayed faithful to God. And when God spoke to him, Job recognized, even as he kind of started to get, as we might say, got in his feelings some towards the end of the book of Job or the middle of Job, when God spoke to him and explained himself to him and, kind of, "Hey, who are you to question me?" Job didn't stand up against God. He rather submitted to what God was saying. And even in those situations where we don't understand, are we willing to submit and say, "God, you're sovereign, you're holy, you're in charge. Whatever you say, then I'm just going to trust you." Could God say, "Have you considered my servant?" and fill your name in there, or my name? That's something that I think we should think about this week, and we should dwell on. Could God call our names out whenever he's looking for someone that is a faithful servant of his? All right. I hope you guys have a great week this week. I'll be back with you on Wednesday for a few more thoughts from the book of Job. Y'all take care. Hope you have a great week.